And it says, as Jesus is having a conversation with this woman, someone from his house comes and says, Jairus, don't bother the teacher anymore. Your daughter is dead. See, the language in that is so important. See, when they say don't bother the teacher anymore, there's a reason they called him a teacher. Because when God doesn't show up in the way that you expect him to, you downgrade his presence in your life. It says don't bother the teacher anymore because he's not the Savior, because he's not the healer, because he's not the Messiah. He must just be a teacher because your daughter is dead. And then I wonder for us, how many things in our life we think are dead, but God's like, they're just asleep. All it takes is one act by me, and it can flip everything on its head. He says, don't bother the teacher. And this is so interesting how we view God. Because I think a lot of us, the lens in which we see God is through the lens of the people that we allow closest to us. And that's why it's so important to learn to deal with disappointment. That's why it's just as important that you learn to stop hiding. But maybe what is most essential when it comes to how you see God is you got to learn to check your circle. You see, the people that you allow into your universe, the people that you allow closest to you, the people that are your inner circle will be a reflection of not just who you are, but who God is in your life. And when Jairus finds himself in this moment and it says everybody is saying, don't bother the teacher anymore. When they're laughing at Jesus saying she's dead, what do you mean she's asleep? They're wailing and they're more. That moment is really interesting. When it says that they're wailing and they're mourning. And Jesus says, stop wailing. See, I love that he didn't say stop mourning. See, because mourning is one of the greatest evidences of the power of love. That when we mourn greatly, it's because we loved greatly. And that there's things in our lives that we have to mourn. We have to be honest about. We have to deal with that disappointment. But there's a difference between wailing and mourning. Because when you're wailing, even the definition, it says it's an audible cry. It's as if you have no control over your emotions, but bigger than that, wailing is all about you. And when Jesus says stop wailing, I think what he's saying is stop making this about you. Are you crying? And are you hysterical? And are you in pain because of what somebody's going through or because of how it has affected you? He says, stop wailing. Watch what I'm about to do. See, the voices that you allow into your life, the voices of the people that are closest to you, will be the voices that you listen to when life hits you the hardest, always. See, who are the people that God has tried to bring into your circle for not just what you needed then, or even not what you need now, but what you're going to need in the future? See, who are the individuals? Who are the women and men that God has brought as a force into your story? Knowing that it would be their voice that would be the comfort that you couldn't find on your own. When Rocky was in the hospital, when she was fighting for her life, when she was fighting for her future, when she was fighting for every ounce of life, I cannot fully articulate to you how much I needed voices of hope in my life. I cannot fully articulate that when I didn't have the words to say, God sent not just friends, but family. That God sent messages not through the sky or through the stars or through this ethereal being. He sent messages through people. That when I needed to be reminded of the goodness of God, when I need to be reminded that I could depend on Him, God chose to bring His message of truth through the mouths of people who had lived intimacy and closeness, not just with us, but with Him. See, God knew that sometimes you need to hear the truth, not just through His lips, but through your friends' lips, through your family's hearts, through the people that you have allowed into your circle. So that when you can't see through the clouds, when you can't find a way through the muck, when you feel like you're just stuck and don't know how to move forward. See, sometimes the most urgent force that God gives us is the urgency that we find in the people around us. And it's that force that pulls us forward, pulls us out of mediocrity, pulls us out of the average, pulls us out of the common, pulls us out of the despair and the fear and the uncertainty. It's the force, the greatest love that the world has ever known and seen, and that's the love of a father.